Does Georgia's citizens arrest law apply in this case? What about self-defense? Page Pate is a criminal defense attorney in Brunswick who's joining us this morning via Zoom. Mr. Pate, thank you for being here. Do appreciate it. And we also want to point out to our viewers that you're not affiliated with this case, nor are you affiliated with any of the people involved, correct?
That's correct.
So would you please explain Georgia's citizens arrest law?
Sure. Georgia has a citizens arrest law, like many states, to generally allow retail establishments to apprehend someone that they think may be shoplifting. That was the reason that the statute was enacted. That's usually where you see it apply. In a situation like this, the only type of defense somebody could have if they're in Mr. McMichael's position is if they saw someone committing a crime and then they tried to apprehend that person, hold on to them just long enough for the police to show up. But what's critical about Georgia's law, although you are allowed to detain someone as a citizen if you think they've committed a crime, you cannot use excessive force. So even if there was a crime committed and he was trying to hold on to Mr. Arbery to wait for the police, you cannot then escalate it, as I think happened in this case.
So I want to unpack that a little bit because that's a lot of information, and I want to compare it to the narrative that the McMichaels then gave, or Greg McMichael gave to law enforcement that day in February. It specifically says that he was in his front yard and saw the suspect from the break-ins hauling, and an expletive is used, down Satilla Drive toward Burford Drive. And that's when he said he ran into his house, called to his son and said, "Travis, the guy is running down the street, let's go." Does that suggest to you that he actually saw a crime being committed at that moment, which would then perhaps allow his defense to be this citizen's arrest law?
It really doesn't. I mean, let's first assume that there was a crime committed, and I think there's a dispute over that. They're talking about some surveillance video they may have had. There was only one burglary reported in that area within the month before this happened, and it was from Travis McMichael's truck, apparently. But assuming that there was a burglary and assuming they had sufficient evidence to believe that it was Mr. Arbery, all they could have done at that point was simply follow him, get his location, notify the police, and then try to detain him if possible. That does not give them the right to use deadly force.
That said, then, why do you suppose, this statute has been raised as a possible defense and excuse as to why these two men have not been charged?
That's a great question. And I think if you look at the police report, it wasn't the McMichaels who were raising this as a defense. It was the district attorney in Waycross. I mean, citizen's arrest was not what Mr. McMichael was saying at the time. He was saying that his son was acting in self-defense. He got out of the truck. He had a shotgun. Mr. Arbery was trying to take it away. He was defending himself. The district attorney in Waycross, as part of his justification not to charge these people or to recommend that they be charged, came up with a citizen's arrest defense. So I understand why they're doing it. If I was Mr. McMichael's lawyer, it's the defense I would probably raise. But I think at the end of the day, it does not justify the use of deadly force in this case.
And let's talk about self-defense here, if we could. Looking at this video, as I have many times, and I'm sure you have as well, I'd like to call up specifically as you see Arbery running, down the street and this white pickup truck is parked in front. We're showing right now that you see Arbery was running in the middle of the street and then veers to the right, perhaps to avoid the man standing in front of him holding the shotgun, and then does come around and there is a confrontation. Could the argument be made that Arbery was not, in fact, the aggressor, considering the fact that he had pivoted as if to perhaps get away from the man holding the shotgun?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think this is a good self-defense case for Mr. McMichael. I mean, number one, you see Arbery running down the street. He is not approaching the McMichaels. He's not threatening them. He doesn't present any sort of threat whatsoever. They are chasing him. And then at the point where Travis McMichael has the gun and is pointing it at Arbery, it is totally reasonable and justified for Mr. Arbery to try to defend himself. So I don't think that Travis McMichael can say I was acting in self-defense when it appears from the video that he was the aggressor in the situation.
So let me fast forward here. So we interviewed Arbery's mother yesterday, And she said that on the day that her son was shot and killed, that a Glynn County police officer knocked on her door and told her that her son had been killed by a homeowner who had confronted her son about a burglary, that they tussled over a handgun, and her son was shot and killed. Yet the narrative from this police report, as you and I just discussed, makes no mention of the fact that either of the McMichaels were in fact burglarized, nor does, based on the video that we're seeing, did this confrontation happen on anyone's property. Given that, how do you, as a criminal defense attorney in Brunswick, wrestle with the fact that it appears there are two different scenarios that are coming from law enforcement?
Yeah, it's really concerning to the people in this community that the case was, at least initially, not going to get a proper investigation. I think it's clear that the Glynn County Police Department should not have been assigned to investigate this case. The good news is, as of yesterday, the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, has taken over the investigation. And I think that's given a lot of people in this community some relief and some hope that we'll get a thorough and independent look into exactly what happened.
Page Pate is a criminal defense attorney in Brunswick. Thank you for joining us this morning. Do appreciate it. And we'll be right back.
Thank you, Jennifer.